Jealousy. It starts as a whisper, an uneasy feeling buried deep inside. A side glance, a quiet comparison, a thought that refuses to go away. At first, it's small, a nagging irritation, a fleeting moment of resentment. But then, it festers. It grows. It takes root in the mind, twisting reality, making every interaction feel like a threat, every word like a challenge. It turns admiration into obsession. Friendship into rivalry. Love into something dangerous. On a warm September night in Austin, Texas, a young woman's life came to a violent end. A 911 call shattered the quiet. A panicked voice cut through the darkness. There's a girl on the road, she's not moving, oh my God. Headlights sliced through the night on Highway 71. A car had kept going. No brake lights. No hesitation. Just the roar of an engine fading into the distance. Left behind on the cold pavement was 21-year-old Samantha Reynolds, her body broken, her breath shallow, her life slipping away with every passing second. Only hours earlier, she had been laughing at a party, surrounded by friends, her world filled with promise. She was a college student with a bright future. A young woman full of life. And she was with someone she trusted, her best friend, Rachel Monroe. A friendship that had lasted for years. A bond that should have been unbreakable. But trust can be fragile. And when jealousy seeps into the cracks, it can shatter into something deadly. Security footage from a nearby gas station captured the last time Samantha was seen alive. The flickering neon lights illuminated three figures, Samantha, Rachel, and Jake Thompson, the man caught between them. They climbed into Rachel's car, unaware that only two of them would make it home. At 1:32 a.m., everything changed. A sudden push. A body tumbling onto the asphalt at 50 miles per hour. A car speeding away into the night. A single message left behind on Rachel's phone. If I can't have him, neither can you. Was this a tragic accident? Or had jealousy turned into something far more dangerous? Stay with us as we unravel the chilling betrayal that ended Samantha's life. Austin, Texas. A city full of life, where college students chase dreams under the glow of neon signs and the hum of live music. A place where friendships are forged, hearts are broken, and the future feels limitless. But on the night of September 14, 2023, beneath the bright lights of the University of Texas at Austin, something far darker was unfolding. Samantha Reynolds had everything to live for. At 21, she was on the path to becoming a clinical psychologist, a goal she had worked towards since she was a child. She had a way of making people feel safe, of listening without judgment, of lighting up a room with her easygoing smile. Those who knew her described her as the kind of person you could trust with your deepest secrets, the kind of friend who would stand by you no matter what. And for years, Rachel Monroe had been that friend. Rachel and Samantha met in high school. At first, they were inseparable, two young women who laughed at the same jokes, who shared clothes, who knew each other's families. Rachel was the quieter of the two, more reserved, with an intense loyalty that bordered on possessiveness. She was fiercely protective of Samantha. Some even said she idolized her. Then came Jake Thompson. Jake was 23, a law student with a charming smile and a confidence that drew people in. He wasn't looking for anything serious, he enjoyed the attention, the chase, the thrill of being wanted. And he was wanted, by both Samantha and Rachel. To Samantha, it was casual. A flirtation that never fully became a relationship. A fun distraction from the stress of college life. But to Rachel, it was something more. Jake was the one thing she couldn't stand to lose. And in her mind, Samantha was standing in her way. The tension had been building for months. Friends noticed the shift. The whispered arguments. The way Rachel would watch Samantha and Jake when they talked. The way her mood darkened whenever Samantha mentioned his name. And then came the night of September 13th. It started like any other night, a house party near campus, loud music, cheap drinks, the kind of night that blurs together in a college student's memory. Samantha and Rachel arrived together, just like always. But something was different. Eyewitnesses later described the unease in the air. Samantha and Jake stood close, laughing, their body language relaxed, comfortable. Rachel was watching. Her expression unreadable. Then, a sudden change, a forced smile, a sharp tone in her voice as she pulled Samantha aside. Can we talk? A whispered conversation. A tense exchange. No one knew exactly what was said, but one thing was clear, Rachel was upset. Her hands clenched at her sides. Her voice barely controlled. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the moment passed. Rachel smiled again, her tone light, almost too light. At 12:50 a.m., the three of them left together. Rachel drove. Samantha sat in the passenger seat. Jake in the back. Witnesses saw them get into Rachel's black Honda Civic, the same car she had driven since high school. The same car that, minutes later, would become a weapon. The roads were dark. The air was heavy with the lingering heat of a Texas summer night. The hum of the tires against the pavement filled the silence. Then, at 1:32 a.m., a frantic voice shattered the quiet. 911, what's your emergency? There's a girl on the road, she's not moving, oh my God. The caller had been driving home when they saw her, a motionless figure on the pavement, barely breathing, her body twisted unnaturally. Samantha Reynolds had been pushed from the car at full speed. The vehicle never stopped. No one looked back. No one called for help. She was left to die on the cold asphalt of Highway 71. The investigation into Samantha Reynolds' death began the moment paramedics arrived on the scene. She was still alive, barely clinging to consciousness, her body battered and broken from the impact. But she never got the chance to speak. By the time she was rushed to the hospital, it was too late. At 2:19 a.m., she was pronounced dead. Now, the only people who could explain what had happened were the two who had been in the car with her, Rachel Monroe and Jake Thompson. Rachel was the first to speak to authorities. She played the role of the grieving best friend flawlessly, her voice shaking, her hands trembling as she told her version of the events. She was drunk. She opened the door herself, Rachel insisted. I tried to grab her, but it happened so fast. Jake's statement, however, was different. He claimed he had been asleep in the back seat when it happened. He only woke up when he heard Rachel scream. I didn't see anything, Jake told investigators. I just remember the car jerking and Rachel freaking out. She kept saying, oh my God, what just happened? It seemed, at first, like a tragic accident. But then came the witnesses from the party. Rachel was furious, one partygoer recalled. She was glaring at Samantha all night. At one point, we heard her say, you always take what's mine. Another guest added, Rachel wasn't just mad. She was, off. Like she had already decided something before she even got in that car. Then there were the messages. Detectives pulled records from Rachel's phone, and what they found painted a chilling picture. She knew I loved him, but she kept flirting. I hate how she always has to be the center of attention. I wish she'd just disappear. It was clear that Rachel's obsession with Jake had reached dangerous levels. But had it been enough to kill? Forensics had their own story to tell. The speed calculations were damning. Samantha had hit the ground at 50 miles per hour. That wasn't the speed of someone who had jumped or fallen by accident, it was the speed of someone who had been pushed from a moving car. The injury report confirmed it. There were no signs that Samantha had braced for impact. No defensive wounds. No attempt to catch herself. Surveillance footage from a nearby traffic camera added another layer to the mystery. The black Honda Civic was visible for just a few seconds. But in those seconds, something critical was captured. The car slowed down right before Samantha hit the pavement. And then it sped off. That wasn't the reaction of someone who had just witnessed an accident. That was the reaction of someone leaving the scene of a crime. Then came the first major twist. A gas station attendant came forward with a story that changed everything. Rachel was here about an hour before it happened, he told police. She bought a bottle of vodka. She seemed angry. She kept checking her phone. When she left, she peeled out of the parking lot like she was in a hurry. Rachel Monroe was no longer just a heartbroken friend caught in a tragic accident. She was a suspect in a potential murder investigation. And the deeper detectives dug, the more unsettling the truth became. Detectives wasted no time bringing Rachel Monroe in for questioning. She arrived at the station just after noon, wearing the same clothes from the night before, her hoodie wrinkled, her hair in disarray. Her eyes were bloodshot, but not from crying. She barely looked shaken. They sat her down in a sterile interrogation room, the camera blinking red in the corner. Across the table, Detective Lisa Carter, a seasoned investigator with 15 years of homicide experience, folded her hands and studied Rachel. Tell me what happened last night, Carter said, her voice even. Rachel sighed, rubbing her temples. It was an accident, she muttered. Sam was drunk. She was being reckless. She just opened the door and fell out. Detective Carter didn't flinch. She'd heard this before, the desperate attempt to control the narrative. You didn't stop the car, she stated. Rachel shifted in her seat. I panicked. You didn't call 911. Another pause. I thought she'd be okay. Detective Carter slid a folder across the table. Inside were printouts of Rachel's text messages, the ones where she wished Samantha would disappear, the ones filled with jealousy and bitterness. Rachel's face hardened. "We know what happened, Rachel." Carter's voice was quiet, pressing. "Samantha didn't fall. She didn't jump. You pushed her." Rachel's breath hitched. Then came the next blow, the forensic report. "Her injuries don't match a fall," Carter continued. "There's no sign of her bracing for impact. And the car slowed down before she hit the ground. You didn't just let her fall. You threw her out." Rachel's hands curled into fists on her lap. Her eyes darted around the room, as if looking for a way out. "We have Jake's statement," Carter added. "He heard you scream. He saw you speed away. He knows you did it." Rachel swallowed hard. The walls were closing in. Then, finally, she broke. Her voice was barely a whisper at first. "I just wanted her to shut up." Detective Carter leaned in. "What did she say to you?" Rachel's jaw clenched. "She laughed." Carter frowned. "What do you mean?" Rachel's eyes flashed with anger. "I told her I loved him. I told her Jake was mine. And she laughed." Her breathing grew erratic. "She said he would never choose me. That I was pathetic." A tear rolled down her cheek, but it wasn't sorrow. It was rage. "I lost it," Rachel admitted. "I pushed her. I thought she'd land on her feet." Detective Carter studied her carefully. "Did you stop the car?" Rachel exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "I didn't want to see." Her next words sent chills down Carter's spine. "She always got what she wanted," Rachel murmured. "Not this time." The boyfriend's reaction. News of Rachel's confession spread quickly. Jake Thompson, the unintentional object of obsession, was in shock. "I had no idea," he told reporters outside the courthouse, his voice hollow. "I mean, I knew they fought over me sometimes, but I thought it was normal. I never imagined it would come to this." He agreed to testify against Rachel in court. When asked why, he looked down at his hands, shaking his head. "Because Samantha didn't deserve to die over me." Rachel Monroe was arrested that night. The charge? First-degree murder. But the case was far from over. The trial would reveal even more disturbing truths. The trial of Rachel Monroe began on a cold morning in January 2024. The courtroom was packed, journalists, students, and grieving family members filled the seats. The case had captivated the nation. It wasn't just about one young woman's life being cut short, it was about the dangerous consequences of unchecked jealousy, obsession, and betrayal. Rachel, now 23, entered the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. She no longer looked like the vibrant college student she once was. But what stood out most was her demeanor. She showed little emotion as she took her seat next to her defense attorney. The prosecution wasted no time painting Rachel as a woman driven by rage, a woman who had meticulously built up resentment toward Samantha Reynolds until it reached its deadly breaking point. The lead prosecutor, David Calloway, addressed the jury. His voice was steady, firm. "Rachel Monroe didn't just make a mistake that night," he said. "She made a choice. She slowed the car down just enough to shove Samantha out and then sped away, leaving her best friend, her so-called sister, to die alone on that highway." He presented evidence, the incriminating text messages, the forensic reports, the surveillance footage showing Rachel's car slowing down just before the fatal moment. "She wasn't drunk," Calloway continued. "She wasn't out of control. This wasn't some careless accident. This was a calculated act of malice." The defense, led by attorney Stephen Gaines, fought back. "My client is not a murderer," Gaines argued. "She is a young woman who let her emotions get the best of her. She acted in the heat of the moment, with no intention to kill. This is not a case of premeditated murder. It's a case of impulsivity, a tragic accident that spiraled out of control." Rachel herself took the stand. Her voice was shaky, her hands trembling. "I didn't mean to hurt her," she whispered. "I was angry. I was so angry, but I thought," she swallowed hard, struggling for words. "I thought she would catch herself. I didn't think she would." Her voice trailed off, but the damage was done. The prosecution pounced on her statement. "You thought she would catch herself?" Calloway repeated. "Rachel, you were driving 50 miles per hour. No one could catch themselves at that speed. You knew exactly what you were doing." Rachel didn't respond. She only stared down at her hands. After 3 grueling weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated. 5 long hours passed. Samantha's mother, Linda Reynolds, sat in the front row, clutching a photo of her daughter. Jake Thompson was there as well, his expression unreadable. Finally, the judge called the jury back in. The foreperson stood. We, the jury, find the defendant, Rachel Monroe, guilty of manslaughter. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Manslaughter. Not second-degree murder. Rachel Monroe had just escaped a lifetime behind bars. Rachel was sentenced to 22 years in prison, eligible for parole after 15. For Samantha's family, it wasn't enough. She trusted Rachel with her life, Linda Reynolds said outside the courthouse, her voice thick with grief. And that's what cost her everything. 22 years. That's not justice. Samantha doesn't get a second chance. Why should Rachel? Rachel's parents sat silently in the back of the courtroom, their faces stricken with disbelief. We didn't raise her to be this way, her father, Robert Monroe, finally said. We don't understand what happened to our daughter. The case shook the University of Texas at Austin. Students held candlelight vigils for Samantha, her former classmates writing messages of love and remembrance outside her dorm building. A scholarship was created in her name, the Samantha Reynolds Memorial Fund, dedicated to supporting young women pursuing psychology degrees. But the pain lingered. Jake Thompson withdrew from law school, unable to shake the guilt of being at the center of it all. Maybe if I had been more aware, he admitted in an interview months later, maybe if I had seen how deep Rachel's resentment ran, Samantha would still be here. In the months after the trial, one lingering question remained, had Rachel planned this all along? Detectives reviewed past interactions between Rachel and Samantha, trying to determine if there were earlier signs of Rachel's intent. A disturbing detail emerged. 3 months before the incident, Rachel had searched online for, how much force does it take to push someone out of a moving car? Had she been thinking about this all along? Was this more than just a moment of rage? Samantha Reynolds lost her life over something as trivial as a love triangle. Rachel Monroe threw hers away for the same reason. And in the end, no one won. Jealousy is powerful. It can creep in unnoticed, twisting thoughts, poisoning relationships, and, in the worst cases, leading to destruction. That night on Highway 71, it didn't just take one life, it shattered two. Samantha Reynolds never made it home. Her dreams, her future, her laughter, all stolen in a moment of rage. And Rachel Monroe, a young woman with a promising future, now spends her days behind prison walls, haunted by the weight of what she's done. One moment of unchecked anger. One impulsive decision. And now, there's no going back. But this case leaves us with unsettling questions. Do you think Rachel's sentence was fair? Should jealousy ever be considered a motive for first-degree murder? Tell us what you think in the comments. Could this tragedy have been prevented? If you found this case as disturbing as we did, make sure to like and subscribe for more true crime deep dives. Because behind every crime, there's a final truth, and we're here to uncover it.